Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following message that you are going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a WhatsApp voice note that I received. The narration of that WhatsApp voice note reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, my story, it goes on like this. When I got married, I was only 18 years old. So by the time that I got married, this thing of witchcraft, I didn't believe that witchcraft is real. But my brother, by the time that my husband took me so that I can stay with his parents, that was when I realized that my mother-in-law, she was a big, powerful witch. At that time, me and my husband, we were still staying in the same village. My husband, he just comes from the village that is very close to our village. Their house is at the edge of our village. We are just divided by a small river. So when we were staying together, most of the times I would return back home to assist my mom, like if it was harvesting or planting season. So when I was doing all of these things, my mother-in-law, she would always complain. She would say that the reason as to why my husband had gotten married to me, it was because he wanted me to help his parents, and I was like, I am not a slave. So each and every time we were always fighting with each other. There was this other day, my brother, we were busy planting in the fields. So my mother-in-law then said that you are doing your job very slowly. You are such a lazy woman. I do not even know what my son saw in you. You are just a witch and you are a lazy woman. I then stopped everything that I was doing. I then returned back to the compound and I sat down playing with my child. My mother-in-law followed me. She started insulting me and insulting me. I got so tired of all of her insults and I said, let me look for a spot so that I can go and rest. At that time, I had said, let me go to the river. I then went to the river, my brother. By the time that I arrived at the river, I found this other spot where there was a rock that was close to the river, and I sat down with my son as I was playing with him. Brother Nash, I saw something that seemed to be like it had came out of a horror movie. I saw a snake. This snake, it didn't even have a head. It seemed to be like a puff adder, but it didn't have a head. It was actually moving towards my direction. So when I saw this weird looking snake, I jumped and I started running back to my mother-in-law's compound. And I found out that she was already speaking with her own relatives as well as some of my in-laws. And she was like, I had accused her of being a witch, yet she was the one who had accused me of being a witch. By that time, my brother, I had grown tired of her. I then started complaining and I said, but you are the one who said that I was a witch, and when I left, you said that I was going to see something that I had never seen in my life. And it then happened that when I was at the river with my son, I then saw a snake that didn't have a head. When I said that I saw a snake that didn't have a head, she started crying and she started crying. And then I was taken to the village court, whereby I was told that everything that I had done, it was a taboo. I had actually fought with my own mother-in-law, the woman who gave birth to my husband. So I had to pay. They said that I was supposed to pay with some cows as well as goats, but there was no way I was going to find the cows and the goats. I spoke with my husband. My husband loved me a lot. And my brother, when I spoke with my husband, we then went to the city. At that time, my husband was just working at TM supermarket as a casual worker. And me and my husband, we started staying in the city. The moment that we moved from the village coming to the city, then we started receiving spiritual attacks. At that time, my baby was still young, but throughout the night, my child will start to cry. Usually what would happen is that when the sun will be going down, I would actually hear voices that will be whispering weird things in my ears. This voice is usually what they would say. They would just say, tonight you are not going to sleep. And if I would hear a voice speaking to me, and if the voice will say that tonight you are not going to sleep, then on that night my child will cry throughout the night. And my brother, this was really terrible, so much that I had to go back to my own people. When I returned back to the village, my mother-in-law, I don't know how she knew that we were returning back to the village. We found her waiting for us at the bus station. She then grabbed her son and she said that she was going back to her own place with her son. Then I returned back to my own people, and when I returned back home, I spoke with my mother, who knew everything that was happening to me. My mother then took me to one of her brothers, my uncle, and after my uncle had heard this story that I was narrating to him for the second time, he then said that for me to be safe, they had to do a ritual for me already in the family. In my mom's family, there was someone who was like practicing this thing of being a traditional healer. They told me that my mother-in-law, it seemed as if she was a witch. So the spirit that was in me and the spirit that was inside her, they were fighting. She wanted me to become a witch, and when she saw that she could not make me to become a witch, then she started hating me. So Brother Nashi, my uncle, and my mother told me that some rituals were supposed to be done on my body, and after the rituals would have been done on my body, I could return back to the place where I was married, and my mother-in-law will never be able to touch me. What they did is that they started lighting up a fire, and they told me that I was supposed to sit very close to the fire, and that traditional healer, he made some markings on my body whilst he was giving me some herbs and charms to drink. After he had given me the charms to drink, I was then told that I was strong enough. But what surprised me is that I was given some charms, and I was told that when I would want to return back to the place where I was married, I was not supposed to do it when it was during the daytime. I had to go there when it was almost midnight, and I had to sleep outside. I was not supposed to tell my husband that I have returned, and I was not supposed to inform anyone that I am returning. My brother, this sounded to be very scary to me. I asked my mom if it was okay for one of my sisters to go with me, because to do this late at night, it was really scary. At that time, my mom had said that when I would be going to do these things, I would go alone, and I was not supposed to go with my son since he was very young. So on the day that my mom told me that I had to return and perform this ritual, I woke up almost in the middle of the night, and I started walking. My mom only followed me just for a short distance. Just before we had reached the river, she then said, "It is fine, you can now go alone." And she was just standing there, and she said that she was going to stand there until I had crossed the river, my brother. But when I turned around, I didn't even see my mother. So I started running, my brother. Whilst I was running, I felt as if there was something that was like a cow that was chasing me down. By the time that I was crossing the river, that was when I turned around so that I can see if it was a cow that was chasing me or a donkey. My brother, when I turned around, I saw that there was a creature that was actually chasing me. This creature, what it looked like from the waist area going upwards, it was like a bull. Going downwards, it was like a human being. It actually had the legs of a human being. This creature, it was very dark in color. I kept on running, my brother, until I had reached the compound. When I entered into the compound, that was when this creature seemed to be struggling to get inside the compound. It kept on moving round and round, and during that time, it was when the maize had actually grown so big, so it then ran straight into this other maize field that was close to my mother-in-law's compound. When it ran into the fields, I then looked for a spot where I had to bury those charms that had been given to me by that traditional healer. I buried those charms, my brother. Until today, those charms are still buried. Well, fine, my brother. After my husband had worked in the city, that was when he found this other friend of his through Facebook, and the friend said that he is now working in South Africa. I had forgotten this whole story that had happened between me and my mother-in-law. We then came here to South Africa, where we started working on this other farm. When we were working on that farm, what surprised me, my brother, is that everyone started hating me. Everyone started just hating me for no particular reason at all. And like I told you, that my husband, he always had this passion of becoming a prophet. So he would always go with me to different prophets because he wanted to know the reason as to why everyone was hating me. We then went to this other prophet. At that time, this prophet was staying in an area that is called Dendron. When we went to that place called Dendron, that was when the prophet said, this one is a witch. This one is a witch. She is very powerful. So I was shocked because all my life I had never had a dream whereby I will be eating people's flesh. I had never had a dream whereby I will be in the graves. But that prophet insisted and said, you are a witch. Each and every night you get outside of the house, you actually leave your own husband. You place a broom on the bed and you leave your husband with that broom, and you actually be hugging that broom, thinking that the broom is his wife, and you would have gone with your friends. When I heard this story, I was actually terrified, my brother. Then that prophet said, if you think you are lying, I am going to give you this holy water, but make sure when you use this holy water, you do not want to be a witch anymore. So I accepted that holy water. When I arrived back home, my brother, I then wanted to use the water. I was in the bathroom, and when I was in the bathroom, the moment that I wanted to pour the water in the bucket so that I can wash my body, just like the prophet had told me to do, to wash myself with that water, but I had to mix it with more water, but not to use any soap. My husband was waiting for me just outside, standing by the bathroom door, because I had said that I wanted to be alone. When I looked into the water, I then saw my own self, my brother. I saw my own self. I was standing there in the water with a couple of women. We were all dressed in black. When I saw this vision in the water of myself, when I wanted to touch the water, then out came a snake. That same snake that I saw a very long time ago, the snake that didn't even have a head, it came out of the water as if it wanted to strike me. Then I heard a voice that told me that I had to throw away that water, and I had to open up the shower and pretend as if I was bathing. My husband never knew that I actually threw away that holy water, and after that I opened up the shower, filled up the bucket again, and I came out very wet without drying myself, and I pretended as if I had used that holy water. My brother, late at night, I then found myself, I was actually just outside. I started looking around, wondering as to how I had gotten out of the house, and at that time I didn't even realize that I was actually naked. So I tried to return back into the house, but what was happening was that the house, it had actually transformed itself as if it was no longer there. It was like the material stuff had disappeared. When I would try to touch the door, then my hand would actually get inside the house. I could not do anything. And when I tried to get back into the house, there was something like a force that was blocking me from getting inside the house. Only my arms were able to get inside the house. My brother, when I turned around, this was when I heard that there were women that were like speaking with me. And when I turned around, I then saw that amongst these women, there was one of my auntie who was there. This auntie of mine, she came and she said that you called for us during the afternoon. You let out a cry of desperation. And my auntie told me that at that time she was at the river doing a washing back home in Zim. That was when she had that cry of me being desperate, wanting her to come and rescue me. I then said that I went to this other prophet, and this prophet what happened is that he accused me of being a witch and gave me some water. And when I wanted to bath with that water, I saw myself standing inside that water in a vision, but I was standing with several women, and these women, they were wearing black. Then my auntie said that it was your soul that was speaking with my soul, but we have responded. Well, take us to that so-called prophet. We flew, my brother, but the way that we flew, I just blinked my eyes. Then the next thing that happened, we were standing like in the middle of that man's church. In our country, we call it krawa. We were standing in the middle of his church, and he was actually begging us for his mercy. My auntie then told me that this man that was standing in front of us, it was not a physical man, but it was his spiritual man that was standing before us, my brother. Then I started accusing that man of accusing me of being a witchcraft. I then said, how am I going to punish you? And one thing about a human soul will always be honest. That man begged for forgiveness, and he said that I'll stop being a prophet if you let me go. Please do not let me die, because my kids are still young. From that day, that man, he stopped being a prophet. My auntie pulled out something out of him, and my auntie said that this is what he has been using to prophesy, and he has been using charms. He is not even of God, this one. And my auntie chased him away. After my auntie had chased him away, my auntie said that I'm going to find someone that will be willing to buy this thing. Like that gift of prophet, and that gift of prophecy, my brother, when I was looking at it, I just saw something that looked like a ball that was full of glitters inside. Then my auntie disappeared. By the time that we had returned back at the place where I was staying with my husband, immediately when my auntie disappeared with her friend, I then found myself in bed again, sleeping right next to my husband. And when I realized that this was not a dream, that was when I looked and I saw that there was actually a broom that was there on the bed, just like that prophet had accused me of keeping a broom on the bed whenever I go to perform this witchcraft. And my husband will think that the broom is actually his wife. And since that day, my brother, that is when I realized that I am actually a witch. I never asked to be a witch, but I became a witch because of my circumstances. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear sister, such a young woman. Strange things do happen in this world.